All right, we're back to the normal setup. Finally back home, although believe it or not, I am traveling again later today. So always busy, always doing something, but still here to get some content out for everybody. So had a great time at Michigan. Pretty good racing, it looked like, at least from the stands. It looks like the race broadcast and on TV looked like it was pretty good. So um, yeah, just really enjoying it right now. So let's talk about Mexico here. If you're new to fast cars, fast money, or if you've been here for a while, you want to help us out, you can like, comment, share, retweet this. It allows us to get to more people. If you haven't already, subscribing to this YouTube channel is greatly appreciated. We're so close to 1,000. You can also follow us over on X. It's at Fast Cars FM. We're almost at 2,000 followers over there. Then not expected, whatsoever. But if you just want to say thank you, maybe you had a good weekend, just want to show your appreciation, send $5, $10 via PayPal or Venmo. There's a couple of links to do that in the support tab. Allows me to, go to more races, which I love to do. So, in terms of the race preview and initial thoughts, it's a road course race first and foremost. And when we talk about road courses, our strategy and approach for them is different than it is for your, Michigan style race, for example, or your intermediate, short track like a Martinsville or a Bristol. So there's, obviously there's different ways to score points in DFS. The first one is dominator points. So if you're leading laps, you get points. If you get fast laps, you get points. The other one is place differential. So, do you get points or lose points based off of where you finish compared to where you started? And then every position has a certain allocated amount of points that are paid out depending on where you finish. So with only 100 laps, it really limits the upside for the laps led in the fast laps in terms of how many points you can score from a dominator perspective. So for those reasons, when we look at the slate today, we really want to focus on drivers who ideally offer both, positive place differential and really strong finishing potential, or, just trying to get some combination of those in your line. So getting good finishing potential plays and good plays that offer some good place, differential. I think that's really the main approach that you want to have today. So when we look at this driver by driver breakdown, you got SVG, Bell, and Larson up here. So SVG, for example, offers us no place differential at all, which isn't good. However, his finishing potential is probably the highest on the slate. He's the odds-on favorite to win. He got the pole for a reason. We know he's going to be the man to beat. He's very fast. Um, so he carries a lot of risk, with only 100 laps in this race. We know he's going to be high owned, but I think there's a couple different ways you can build today. I think you can either, build around a primary lap leader or the guy you think is going to win the race and then stack him with place differential, or, really just trying to get six drivers in your line that you feel like can finish top 10, top 15. So SVG is definitely in that category. However, if he leads 30, 40 laps and then has an issue and finishes 18th or something, like he's really going to hurt your line. Or if he wrecks out or has some mechanical issue or something, like that's really going to kill your line. So a little bit more of a tournament play for me. I know he's going to be high owned, but I really like Christopher Bell. Bell offers us that place differential upside and that good finishing potential upside there starting 31st. Going to be very, very popular. Larson's more of a tournament play, gives us a little bit more place differential upside than SVG, but SVG is just extremely fast. He's the favorite to win, so I'd probably lean on SVG over Larson, but Larson makes for a nice pivot play in tournaments off of SVG for a little bit less ownership. Um, 9K range, you got excuse me, Byron Reddick, Elliot Allmendinger, and Chastain. Really like all these guys for different reasons. So Byron's going to be my favorite out of here. Same reason we like Christopher Bell, just good place differential upside and finishing potential. So he's going to project very nicely. Now, Reddick is usually really strong on the road courses. He did not really like his car too much yesterday. Can this team make the right changes and improve on it? Yes. We know how good he is on the road courses. My only concern is he just really didn't like his car, and I really thought he was going to qualify a little bit better, but still like him a lot. He's just, depending on how top heavy you get, might get a little bit difficult. So Chase Elliott, I like, a lot of people are saying, hey, he's not that good, on the road courses anymore. He hasn't won in the next gen era on the road courses, which, maybe is true. But it's not like he's running bad. I mean, his numbers are very strong. He's very consistent too. Really like his finishing potential, and it gives you a little bit of place differential upside. And who knows? Everyone might get sucked into playing Byron and Reddick today that maybe Elliott's ownership is a little bit lower than it should be. Allmendinger and Chastain, I think, make for really good, interesting tournament plays. You could either play them as a strong finishing potential play or to get a little bit different off the SVG type of lineups that are going to be out there. If SVG has an issue, who are some other drivers in the field that we could foresee, leading some laps and potentially contending for the race win? I would say AJ Allmendinger and Ross Chastain definitely fit that. And then for me, I'm really not getting too much to Kyle Busch and Daniel Suarez, kind of for different reasons. So Bush, I think, starts around where he finishes. If he started a little bit deeper in the field, I'd be interested. And when I look at some of these other plays, like I just think AJ and Ross have more lap leading upside and better finishing potential than Kyle Busch does. So whereas I think his ownership's going to be really, really high this weekend, not only because he won the Xfinity race yesterday, but it's also, we're in Mexico. It's more or less his race. All the fans are there. He's going to be a lot of TV coverage today. But just taking all that aside and just looking at DFS, he starts 10th. So kind of like Kyle Busch, I feel like he's going to finish around there or maybe drop back. I don't really see him going up and leading laps and contending for the race win. I mean, maybe we'll see, but I'd rather just get off of Suarez today for ownership's sake because I think he's going to be pretty high owned. Really like Christopher Buescher. Kind of the same reason for Chase Elliott. Buescher has been really, really good on the road courses in the next gen era. I think he has the most top tens out of everyone in the field today. So I think he's a more or less a consistent, safer play, and I really like his upside. McDowell starts fifth. I think you can throw him in with AJ and Ross as like a, secondary lap leader or just a good finishing play that you can play. If you're getting off of SVG and looking for another potential lap leader or guy that can contend for the race win, I think Michael McDowell, makes a lot of sense in that regard. Cindric and Briscoe are kind of in the same category, decent at road course racing. They both start kind of mid-pack, so they can give you a little bit of place differential upside, but I'm not really expecting either of them to really be in like inside the top five or maybe even the top 10. But I think a top 15 out of both of these cars is very doable. Really like Bowman. Um, I don't know how much people are going to play Bowman. I mean, he does start deep. He's in a good car. He is feeling a little out of it, from that crazy crash at Michigan. He's also just been having a terrible luck streak at the moment, so maybe that keeps his ownership off of him. But, if you're building up here, you're going to need some drivers down here, and I really like Bowman from, his stats on road courses and the place differential and finishing potential upside he offers. Hocevar's numbers aren't as good as Bowman's on road courses, but the thing that Hocevar has that Bowman doesn't have is all the momentum. Maybe not necessarily in terms of finishing, but in terms of how he's running. Hocevar has been arguably, one of the top five cars over the last handful of races. For $7,500 starting 23rd. I'll take that today. Gibbs, probably going to be pretty low owned. Got some extra laps in the Xfinity Series race. I'd put him in the same category as McDowell, AJ Allmendinger, Ross Chastain, Larson, like guy who can finish well and wouldn't be surprised in tournaments if he's contending for the race win today as well. So pretty cheap. If you want to get different, he's kind of a good way to do that. Really not too interested in the Penske duo of Blaney and Logano. Blaney just isn't necessarily the best on road courses. I feel like he's going to finish around where he starts. Logano, probably going to drop back a handful of spots. Now, Bubba Wallace is interesting. I think he's a good pivot option off of, Bowman and Hocevar. He's not necessarily known to be a road course racer, but he's been getting a lot better at it. He's still in a good car, starts 25th. Todd Gilliland was really impressive, very, very fast in practice. I don't think that many people are going to play him, especially with him starting seventh, but I think he can hang out in run up here. So, maybe if you're playing 150 max, don't be afraid to sprinkle in a little bit of Todd Gilliland today. Keselowski probably will get some ownership. The concern is he just isn't really good on the road courses. So yeah, he starts deep. He looks like he gives you a lot of place differential upside. We don't really know how this race is going to play out, but my concern is, he starts 30th and he'll finish as, 24th or 28th or something like that. Um, Ryan Preece starts up front. Didn't expect that at all. So I'm really not too interested. Maybe he can get out, lead some laps, get out in front, beat SVG, but I think he's going to drop back today. And then really from there, not too interested in Ryan Truex. He's filling in for Denny Hamlin today. Doesn't really give you, that much confidence, even though he's in a good car. He was pretty slow in practice. Back that up in qualifying. Austin Dillon starts around where I think he's going to finish. Noah Gregson, maybe. I think he's going to get a lot of ownership today. He's having issues in practice. I wouldn't be surprised if he has issues during this race today. But he basically starts DFL, so he really can't hurt your line that much. Haley starts a little bit too far forward for me. I do like Zane Smith a lot, though. I feel like everyone's going to just narrow in on Gregson. So if you're trying to find different ways to get different on the slate today, pivoting off of Gregson and getting to Zane Smith as your punt option, I think makes a lot of sense. Not really getting to Barry or Jones. They just don't really offer too much place differential upside. Cole Custer, maybe another good pivot play off of Gregson. Custer hasn't been running that well, but offers decent stats in history on the road courses. So maybe as a punt option if you can't afford Gregson or Smith. Really not getting the Stenhouse, kind of the same reasons for as Keselowski. Starts deep, but usually finishes deep on the road courses. Herbst, maybe pretty good speed out of him. Kind of an aggressive tournament play, but typically with the punt options, I want guys that are a little bit safer. And then John Hunter Nemechek starts deep. Maybe if there's some chaos, he can get you like a 25th place finish or something. Not gonna make your DFS day, but just a way to potentially get off of the Gregson chalk or give you a little bit of salary to pay up. Maybe from a 9K guy up to a 10K guy or an 8K guy up to a 9K guy or something like that. And then I'm really not getting too much to Ty Dillon, Cody Ware, or Catherine today. So that'll do it for the Mexico race. Hopefully this is helpful. If it is, like I said, dropping a like on the video is always appreciated. Best of luck to everybody today, and we'll catch you next week.